My name is David Russo. I'm one of the rabbis here at Anshe Emet Synagogue in Chicago.
My name is Rabbi Dror Chenkin Gold, and I'm one of the rabbis here at Anshe Emet Synagogue in Chicago.
And I'm Michael Siegel. I'm also one of the rabbis here at the Anshe Emet Synagogue in Chicago. Our congregation is one of the oldest conservative congregations in the city of Chicago. It's over 140 years old. And it's our pleasure to wish you and your families Chag Urim Sameiach, a very happy, joyous Hanukkah that is not only filled with light, but also filled with hope for a better future. We rarely think about the Maccabees and what they were up against.
Right.
You think about the fact that the holiday begins, or the revolt begins, in this backwaters place in Modin, as opposed to Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was already very engaged with an assimilationist culture, with Hellenism, and they were embracing Hellenism. And to think that this small group was willing to stand up for what it believed was right, stand up for what it believed was truly authentically Jewish, and fight the fight, is really the inspiration of the day. Mm-hmm. It goes back to what David was saying, that one candle can create light. And think about the light that was created by the Maccabees, the hope that has been given to us. And the fact is that when we came back to the Eretz Yisrael, we were also a people that understood that there is a role for the military. There is a role to fight and to take up arms when necessary. But I think Israelis do reflect on Tahor HaNeshech, that they do understand that there's a purity of arms, that militarism is a last resort, but it can be a necessary one. And I think that's our challenge today. How do we balance that, especially when Israel is seen so often in such a negative light? Where's the positive here? How can we create a greater understanding of the situation that Israelis find themselves in such a dark time?
Well, I think we actually have these two stories in tension, right? This Book of Maccabees version, the version that shows up in Al Nisim, which is the one that is sometimes we need to stand up and fight. And we also have this rabbinic narrative that's a little uncomfortable with that says, I don't know that we want to focus on this military piece. Mm-hmm. And can we hold these two stories in tension? We're on the one hand recognizing that sometimes there are times where we need to really stick up for ourselves. And these other times where we recognize this miracle, which is just sharing more light. What does it mean to spread more light throughout our world? And trying to dance between these two opposite poles and to carry the two of them as these two narratives of Hanukkah.
I think also, when we think of, the prayer that we recite for the state of Israel, and one of the lines that I quite like in that prayer says, Megini Eretz Kodshenu. It talks about those who would defend our holy land. I don't think that means only military. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't think it has to. I think there's a way of understanding those who would defend our highest values and principles as being those engaged in the political process, as being those who protest, and those who write, and those who advocate, and those who put themselves out there in all kinds of ways. There are many ways to be a modern Maccabee, which is to say someone who says, I will not sit quietly. I cannot watch the events of the world go by and say that it's not my job to intervene. That's not being a child of the Maccabees. A child of the Maccabees is someone who raises his voice, is someone who uses her power and leverages his position in order to create a world which is more just and more dignified. The means by which the Maccabees reached that was militaristic, and in fact, there are times when we know we have to stand up and fight in a very literal way. There are also times when the tools in our toolbox are quite different. Mm-hmm. But I think the spirit of the Maccabees is not about the sword and the shield. It's about saying, I have a responsibility or an accountability to be present in creating a world which is brighter than that which I am currently experiencing.
And that's one of the things the rabbis were bold about. They reframed the entire Hanukkah story, which was purely militaristic, if you look at the Book of Maccabees. So in the Haftarah that we read on Hanukkah, right, lo b'chayil, but lo b'koach, not by might and not by power, but your spirit alone, is a very clear reframing of the holiday. I'm not sure that Judah Maccabee would have felt all that comfortable hearing that. Or when the rabbis ask in the Talmud, my Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah? They don't ask that question about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, any other holiday, only Hanukkah, because they want to reframe it. They themselves were uncomfortable with the militarism. Right. They were uncomfortable living in a post-70 world where the Jewish people were trying to pick up the pieces. Where do we go from here? And they tell a story about oil. They tell a story about light. They had the courage to reframe a holiday and, shall we say, offer it a new light, a new oil, a fresh look. And I think that's our challenge today, is how do we make sense of Hanukkah today, especially when there's so much bloodshed and there's so much militarism and there's so many calls for revenge. How do we manage that?
Chag Urim Sameiach.